Alright guys, today we'll be doing center support bearing on your drive shaft for your 2000 to like 2006-7 C-class Mercedes. The one on mine went out. It's making a really bad clunking sound and a horrible squeaking sound. I'll show you how to drop the drive shaft and replace it. Before we start, just make sure you have your front wheels shocked with something and have your parking brake on, because you will be taking the drive shaft out of the car so it will move. Alright guys, first we're going to want to disconnect the exhaust. Well, I've sprayed rust pincher in the wrong area, but right here in the middle, you got the first one right here. We're going to disconnect it in the middle right here. Make sure you spray some type of rust pincher on this first, some WD-40, and let it soak in a little bit, because you do not want to break the bolts. If you feel like it's going to break the bolts, try an impact. That might work. The bolt right here, this is a 13, and then the nut on the back side is a 12. Alright guys, there are 3 bolts you gotta take out. So you had 2 on the driver's side and then 1 up top here, which is a little tricky to get out. Once you get it out, your exhaust should be loose here. Next, we're going to remove these holders right here. I'm going to unbolt it from the car. There's one right here, right beside the diff. As the bolt on it is a 13. You really only need to drop the front bolt to gain enough space, but I'm going to be dropping the back one, which is right up in here under the bumper cover, just because there is some pressure on this rubber piece. I don't want to damage it. I want to get it all out of the way. Be careful, that piece will drop down quick, and put a jack under this piece, the muffler right here, so when you get it loose, it doesn't just drop and fall. Alright guys, there's actually another piece holding it under here, right under here. If you look up here, you got this bracket on the driver's side, which is going to be a pain in the butt to get to. Bolts right up in there. It's also a 13. Make sure you got a jack under it so it doesn't just fall down. Alright, after all those are out, the exhaust should just drop down. And next, you're going to work on removing all these little covers covering the drive shaft. Alright, we're going to drop this pan right here and then the pan after, but you will have to undo the nuts on the other pan up front, just because it's all connected. They are 8mm, and once you drop all that, you'll have access to get to the center shaft support bearing of the drive shaft. Okay, so there are 8mm nuts you will have to drop. If you have trouble getting these heat shields out, just get behind it with a little flathead screwdriver and kind of just push down, push from the back if you don't want to damage it or bend it up too much. And some of them are a little tight on there, a little tricky to get off, but if you work patiently, they'll come right off. Alright guys, to drop the drive shaft, you're going to need an 18 on the bolt for the back side and a T60 for the front. Now make sure your tires are chalk good, because you're going to have to put the vehicle in neutral and take the parking brake off, so you can rotate the drive shaft to get to each bolt to take it out, and put it in park when you're going to loosen it, otherwise you'll want to spin. Alright, this is after filming, but the GoPro footage I took got corrupted, but make sure your back 2 wheels are off the ground, because they'll need to be off the ground for you to be able to spin the drive shaft when you need to rotate it to get to the bolts on it. Alright guys, the front is really tricky to get out. You'll have to have the nut right here. I have it on the driver's side, there's enough space. It's a little dark, but you have the nut at the very top. I have this bar for leverage. You can slide your wrench up through this little gap right here on the driver's side, and it can just barely get on the nut right back there. And this is so you don't have to drop the transmission support. And that's the best way to do it without dropping transmission support and a bunch of other stuff. Okay, when you get both ends of the drive shafts loose like I did, you know, it should be able to wiggle back and forth, but it's not going to slide out until we drop this middle center shaft support bearing piece right here. We're going to have to lower this down and do it carefully so the whole drive shaft doesn't fall. And it is a special torque socket, these star ones like this, and you will probably need an extension to reach up in there, and it will be an E12 that will fit, and then you can drop the drive shaft after that. Alright, now that I got it dropped, it's loose, I put a bolt in the back here just to hold it in place so when it dropped down and hit me in the head, so be careful with that. And then you'll take that bolt back out and the drive shaft should start sliding out. If you aren't doing the flex plates, you only have to undo the back part of the drive shaft because it will slide out. I know it's a little dark, but here's the front of the drive shaft. It will slide out from the front of the drive shaft if you're only doing the flex plate. Alright, when I did the center drive shaft support bearing, you do have to press the old one out. I tried hammering it off. I had to press it off, or if you have some type of bearing puller, that'll take it off. But when I put it back on, I did hammer it back on and put a little wrench on the edge and tapped it around. But I did put the drive shaft in a bucket of ice first. Now you do that so the metal contracts, and you leave this just the bearing at room temperature. Now it didn't just slide on easy, but I tapped it on and it got on fairly easy, probably about 5, not even 10 minutes probably. But once you do that, if you're not replacing your front rubber bushing piece, you can slide your back drive shaft back in place and start bolting everything up. Okay, after you put everything back in, you're going to want to tighten up the drive shaft flex plates first, and they are about 35 foot-pounds. I believe it might be 37 foot-pounds. And then you'll tighten the center drive shaft support bearing. Okay, the center drive shaft support bearing is actually 20 foot-pounds. My mistake, said like 29. I read that somewhere, but that is too high. You don't want to strip those aluminum bolts. Now after you got that in, you just had to put your pans and exhaust back into place. Alright, if you guys have any questions, comment down below. I'll try and get to them. Hope this video helped you do the center drive shaft support bearing and flex plates on your drive shaft.